Hello friends, welcome to Oliveboard. I hope you're all doing well and your exam preparations are going good too. This video is a series of videos through which we are covering the Securities Market Awareness section for SEBI Grade A Officer Examination 2018. Now this particular video is chapter 7 of the series wherein we will be discussing currency convertibility, everything about currency convertibility, what is partial convertibility, what is capital account convertibility or current account convertibility, various types of currency convertibility. We will also be discussing about what are forwards, futures and options in the market and with special reference to the forex market. So we will be also discussing the currency forwards, currency futures as well as currency options in this video. Before we start, I want to tell you that it is very important to take up mock tests. So we are providing you a free mock test for the examination. To take up this mock test, you can click on the link that is provided in the description box and analyze how you're performing in the examination and start preparing accordingly to make sure you do not repeat the mistakes that you have in this particular mock test. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest videos. We will start with currency convertibility. So what is currency convertibility? It is the ease with which a country's currency can be converted into gold or any other currency at market exchange rate without limit or government permission. So we know that the foreign exchange market is an unregulated market. So with how much ease can we convert our country's currency to any other currency, say dollar or euro or any other currency? So what is the ease in which we can convert rupee into other currencies? Now, why is currency convertibility necessary? First is to promote foreign trade. Now we cannot expect people from London to accept rupee because that is not what their currency is, right? So in order to promote foreign trade, we need to convert currency to make sure that trade gets smoother. To promote capital flows between countries. Now we know that every country needs investment for its growth. So if there are other people from various other countries wanting to come and invest in our country, they need to convert their currency in order to make an investment in India. So in Indian rupee, right? To promote tourism. So when we go out on a tour to other country, we need their currency so we can stay there or we can travel, we can go for sightseeing, for which currency convertibility is a must, and for rapid growth of the world trade. So since we are a globalized world now, almost all the countries have moved towards globalization. So to make sure that the growth is rapid in nature, we need to have currency convertibility. Now, there tends to be a correlation between a country's economy and the convertibility of its currency. Now, a country which is not very stagnant or is going through too much ups and downs, its currency convertibility will be very hard. Now, here when we talk about the case of Venezuela, so since we know that there is a huge inflation which is going on in Venezuela, hence the convertibility becomes difficult. There would not be many people who would want to buy their currency. So there is a correlation between how the economy of a country is functioning and its convertibility. How is a currency convertibility done? So how do we convert currencies? So in the international transaction, currencies of different countries are used. We know that, right? Whenever we are traveling to different countries, we cannot have a single currency. We need different currencies to transact there. So some of the world currencies are acceptable in all types of transactions throughout the world. So these currencies are called convertible currencies. Now here we can talk about US dollar. If we go to some other country, if we are not transacting in their currency, they sometimes do accept US dollar. Almost all the countries accept US dollars. But if we want them to accept Indian rupee, not all the countries will be ready to take up Indian rupee. So these are the currencies that are convertible in nature, through which we can transact in various countries. But other currencies are called inconvertible currencies because they are not accepted by all the countries in all types of transactions. So they may accept it in a trade, but when it comes to tourism or say investment, they may not be ready to accept whichever currency we are giving them. So the international status of a currency depends on two things. First is the country's balance of payments position. Now, as we know, balance of payment is the net of all the trade that we are doing with other countries. So whatever the position of our balance of payment is, has a major role to play in determining the status of our currency and the confidence of the rest of the world in our currency. So this depends on the stability of currency in the past. So if a currency has been stable due to the economic stability of the country, the other countries will have confidence over us and our status for our currency will also be good. Types of currency convertibility. So a total of 3 types are there when we talk about currency convertibility, which we will be discussing now. The first one is fully convertible currency, the second is partial convertible currency, and the third one is non-convertible currency. So what is a partly convertible currency? When a currency is convertible only on current account transactions. So first we should know what current transactions are. Whenever we are having a trade with some other country, it is called a current transaction. So a currency that is accepted for current transactions like exports of goods and services and unilateral payments and receipts, that is called as a partly convertible currency, since we can convert it only for the current transactions. But if a currency is convertible on capital account, it is called a fully convertible currency. So if a currency can be used to repay the external debt that we are taking from some other country or some international organization, so here we can talk about, if rupee becomes a fully convertible currency, India will be in a position to repay her external debt in rupees rather than foreign exchange. So if we become a completely convertible currency, or if rupee becomes a fully convertible currency, we allow the transactions in the capital accounts also. So capital account convertibility is also likely to encourage greater inflow of financial capital from the rest of the world, and it also improves the balance of payments of the countries. So since it is completely or fully convertible, we allow foreign capital to come into our country, and there is a great chance of having a positive balance of payment position. So we will discuss about current account convertibility, what it is. So this allows free inflow and outflow for all purposes other than the capital purposes, which is investment and loans. So we can transact in our currency with all the other countries of the world when it comes to trade, but we cannot convert it to capital account, which includes the investment or the loans that we borrow from the other countries. So it allows residents to make and receive only trade related payments. So here we can receive dollar or any other currency for export of goods. We can pay in dollars or any other foreign currency for import of goods and services. We can make sundry remittances, and we can access foreign currency for travel, for studies abroad, for medical, or for gifts, etc. So the advantages of current account convertibility is that we have a facility to send the foreign earnings to India freely. So if I have someone who's working at UAE, particularly in Dubai, so that person can send remittances to India since we have current account convertibility. This also leads to flourish in international trade. So there is a lot of trade between the two countries. Import and export can be done at fair rates, which is determined by the market. So here, since it is an unregulated market, only the demand and supply of the currency determines the exchange rate. Coming to capital account convertibility, it means that rupee can now be freely convertible to foreign currencies for acquisition of assets like shares or assets abroad. So here, even for investments or the loans that we take from other countries, they are freely convertible. So rupee gets freely convertible. How much ever transactions we want to make, there's no regulation over it. So the advantages of capital account convertibility are it removes all barriers to the international flow of capital. So anyone from any country who wants to come and invest in India can come and invest in any of the sectors. It can be primary sector, industry sector or service sector. There will be availability of large funds to supplement the domestic resources, and it will promote economic growth. Since people from other countries can come and invest in our country, so there will be a large fund available to conduct economic activities, and hence there will be a huge economic growth. Improved access to international financial markets and reduction in cost of capital. So supposedly in India, banks are giving loans at 7% rate of interest, but in London, say they are giving it at 4%. So companies from India can go and borrow amount from European banks. So there is low cost of capital, and it also gives incentives to the residents to acquire and hold foreign securities and assets. So we can go to any other country and we can buy an asset that we want in that particular country. So coming to convertibility of the rupee, in India we have partly convertible currency, which means that we allow conversion of rupee only in terms of current account and not in terms of capital account. So this was in wake of the liberalization policy that we had announced in the year 1991. So now rupee has been linked to a basket of currencies, and the new exchange rate which is determined is called the liberalized exchange rate mechanism. So this is nothing but liberalized exchange rate mechanism through which the value of rupee is determined based on a basket of currencies. So now there is free movement, or say market value, that determines what is the value of rupee going to be. Rupee is yet to be made a fully convertible currency, since we do not allow capital account conversions, hence it is only partly convertible currency. So in case we want to make rupee a fully convertible currency, what are the advantages that we have? So it will remove limitations on global flows. We can have capital coming from various other countries, and there will be no limitation to it, to the global flow of investment to India. Now, we can convert currencies into any other currency without the need for a transaction. Now, when we talk about capital account converting, we can easily go to any country and we can convert rupee to their currency. It promotes fund availability to supplement national resources. As I already said, that to promote economic growth we need a lot of funds, and borrowing becomes difficult for all the corporates. Hence, if we have capital account convertibility, there will be enough funds to supplement and encourage economic growth. So it will promote national economic growth. It will also provide enhanced access to global financial markets, since the companies can go to financial markets and borrow from there is a great access. It reduces the capital cost. As I told you, in India, if we are getting loan for 7% and in Europe we get it for 4%, we can go and borrow from there only. Now, Indians will also get incentive to hold and acquire foreign securities or assets. We can go and invest in other countries, and it makes the financial system globally competitive. There is enough competition. We have a lot of funds, and there are greater chances of India becoming even larger. Now, what are the disadvantages if we have fully convertible currency. There is high volatility, so anything that happens in the global market will have a huge impact on India since it is completely convertible. We will have foreign debt burden. Now if people come from abroad and invest in India, or the corporates borrow from the international markets, our foreign debt burden increases. Now it will also have an effect on balance of trade and exports. Since it will be an unregulated rupee, Indian exports may become less competitive, and hence we can reduce the exports will get reduced. Since India has a lack of fundamentals, we have many issues, or say basic challenges when we talk about infrastructure. So high dependence on exports, we have huge population, there's challenges of bureaucracy. So these are some economic setbacks that we need to first fix in order to convert it, or in order to move from partly convertible currency to fully convertible currency. Coming to derivatives. So as the name itself says, it is an instrument whose value is derived from the value of one or more basic variables that are called bases. Now, base can be anything. It can be an asset, it can be an index or a reference rate. It can be equity, commodity or foreign exchange or any other asset. So these are called bases, and derivative is something that derives its value from these bases or some underlying asset. So derivatives can be broadly divided into forwards, futures, options and swaps, which we will now be discussing in detail. We'll start with forward contracts. So a forward contract is an agreement to buy or sell an asset on a specified date for a specified price. So from here we should understand the main features of the definition. There is an agreement. So two people come together and they sign an agreement to buy or sell the underlying asset, which can be anything. As we discussed, it can be an equity, it can be a foreign exchange, or it can be a commodity. So the transaction takes place on a predetermined future date. So we decide the date now only, that it is 31st of December 2018, which becomes a predetermined future date, and the price at which the transaction will take place is also predetermined. So we say that we are going to buy or sell 10 kgs of cotton at 40 rupees per kg. So everything is in detail, it is all defined. The only prerequisite of a forward contract is that the other party should be willing to take a reverse position. So if we have one buyer, we should have a seller to agree to the same conditions. So when we talk about a currency forward, here there is a binding contract. Please understand that it is binding in nature. It is not optional. You cannot deny it on the final date. That locks the exchange rate for purchase or sale of a currency on a future date. So this is essentially a hedging tool that does not involve any upfront payment. So we do not make a payment now. We decide that on 31st of December, I am going to buy $5 at the rate of say 70 rupees. So everything is decided in advance. The other major benefit of a currency forward is that it can be tailored to a particular amount and delivery period, unlike standardized currency futures. So we can tailor it as per our requirements. So currency forward settlement can either be on a cash or a delivery basis, provided that the option is mutually acceptable and has been specified beforehand in the contract. So when we are signing the agreement, we make sure that everything is detailed and specified in the contract. So we can deal either in cash or delivery basis. They are over the counter instruments, as they do not trade on a centralized exchange, and they are also called outright forward. Now coming to future contracts, it is effectively a forward contract which is standardized in nature because they are not exposed to the counterparty risk and are much more liquid. So it is standardized with respect to the quality of underlying asset. So here we mention that what is it. Is it rupee versus dollar? Are we going to exchange rupee for dollar, or what is the quality of the underlying asset? The quantity. So we decide that we are going to deal with $50 and we decide the terms of the contract also. So when we talk about currency futures, they are transferable future contract that specifies the price in one currency at which the other currency can be bought or sold at a future date. So we decide that, say for 70 rupees we are going to buy $50. So for 70 rupee per dollar we are going to buy $50 on 30th of November. So everything is very much in detail and they are legally binding, and counterparties that are holding the contracts must deliver the currency amount at the specified price on the specified delivery date. So this is also very important. We cannot, on the final day, we do not have an option. We have to make sure that the transaction gets converted, and it is a hedging tool for trade or currency risks that the traders trade in. Coming to option contract, this is a contract which gives one party the right to buy or sell the underlying asset on a future date at a predetermined price. So it's the same thing. The only difference is that it is not compulsory or it is not legally binding. They have an option. So the other party is obliged to either sell or buy the underlying asset at a predetermined price. Now the predetermined price is called the strike price. Okay. So the option which gives the right to buy is called the call option. So when we use call option, it means that we want to buy the asset, and when we have the right to sell, it is called put option. That means we are selling the underlying asset. Now please note that the right always remains with the buyer of the option, where the seller of the option always has an obligation. So the seller has to sell, but it is optional for the buyer to either buy or not buy. So in return, the buyer pays the seller a premium for getting the right. Now since he might get a huge profit out of the transaction, he pays a premium, which is the maximum possible loss for the buyer and the maximum possible gain for the seller. So here he sort of compensates for the loss that the seller makes out of the transaction. So when we talk about currency option, it is a contract that gives the buyer the right but not the obligation to buy or sell a certain currency at a specified exchange rate on or before a specified date. And as I already told you, that the buyer pays a premium to the seller for the loss that the seller has to bear. So these type of currency options are common ways for corporates or individuals or financial institutions to hedge against adverse movement in exchange rates between the currencies. So they use it like a hedging tool to sort of reduce the loss they may face due to exchange rates. The key differences between futures, forwards and options are, so the option holder has no obligation to trade, whereas both futures and forwards are legally binding. As I already told you, people who get into future or forward transactions, they have to make sure that they are carrying the or conducting the transaction on the specified date. But when we talk about option, the option holder has an option to transact. Now futures differ from forwards in that they are standardized and the parties meet through an open public exchange, whereas futures are private agreements. So forward is not a private, may or may not be, but when we talk about future, it is a private agreement. And when we talk about forward, it is standardized in nature as it depends on the underlying assets completely. Now we have to pay money to buy an option because we have the choice to exercise the option as a privilege. But when we talk about a forward or a future agreement, when we get into a forward or future agreement, we don't have to make a payment or we don't have to give a service fee, because it is obligatory on us to make sure that the transaction is completed on the specified date. So these are the key differences between forward, futures and options. That's all we have for you in this video. I hope you like the video. Do share it with your friends, and if you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe now to not miss any videos. Thank you.